The divine contract. In a timeless and profound pact, God declares in the Quran, "Indeed, God has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties in exchange for paradise. They fight in the cause of God, so they kill and are killed. So rejoice in your transaction, which you have contracted, and it is that which is the great attainment." Chapter 9, verse 111. This is the ultimate transaction, the divine contract offered to every soul. But what does it truly mean to sell one's life to God? What level of love and sacrifice does it take to fulfill such a pledge? And can a man embody this contract so completely that he becomes a walking, breathing martyr on earth? Our story begins in Mecca, with a gifted young merchant named Talha ibn Ubaidullah. Wealthy, sharp-minded, and respected, he possessed everything a young Qurayshi nobleman could desire. Yet his heart was restless, finding no solace in the stone idols of his people. On a trading journey in Syria, a Christian monk told him of a prophecy. A final prophet named Ahmad would soon appear in Mecca. The words ignited a fire in Talha's soul. Returning home, he found the city buzzing with news of Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace and blessings be upon him. Introduced to the prophet by his close friend, Abu Bakr, Talha instantly recognized the truth he had been searching for. In the prophet's serene presence, he found his peace and pledged his allegiance, becoming one of the first 8 people to embrace Islam. This decision came at a great cost. He was persecuted by his own tribe, but his conviction was absolute. He had made his transaction. His life was no longer his own. When the call came to migrate to Medina, he abandoned his wealth and homeland, choosing the poverty of faith over the riches of disbelief. The Muslim community was soon tested at the Battle of Badr, a miraculous victory that also awakened the bitter vengeance of the Quraysh. A year later, they returned, 3,000 strong, to the foot of Mount Uhud, determined to extinguish the light of Islam forever. The Prophet, a brilliant commander, placed 50 archers on a strategic hill, giving them an explicit, unwavering command: do not move from this spot, no matter what happens, until you hear from me. The stage was set for a day that would test every soul and reveal the true meaning of a promise made to God. The storm on the mountain. The battle began with a righteous fury. The smaller Muslim army, fueled by faith, tore through the pagan ranks. Victory seemed swift and certain as the Quraysh broke and fled, leaving a field littered with the spoils of war. And it was here, in this moment of apparent triumph, that the heroic journey took a devastating turn. From their perch on the hill, the archers saw the victory and the abandoned riches. The lure was too strong. Forgetting their prophet's solemn command, most of them descended to claim the spoils. It was a catastrophic error, a fleeting act of disobedience that plunged victory into chaos. The shrewd pagan commander, Khalid ibn al-Walid, saw the opening. He wheeled his cavalry around and crashed into the exposed, undefended rear of the Muslim army. Panic erupted. The victorious became the vanquished, caught in a deadly pincer. In the swirling confusion, a cry, venomous and soul-shattering, spread through the ranks. Panicked shouting, "The prophet has been killed!" The rumor, though false, was a devastating blow. The Muslim lines disintegrated. Some threw down their swords in despair, while others fled, believing all was lost. In the heart of this maelstrom, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was wounded and isolated. A rock smashed into his blessed face, breaking a tooth and embedding his helmet's rings into his cheek. He fell, surrounded by a band of assassins, intent on finishing the job. All hope seemed to evaporate in the dust and blood of Uhud. The divine contract, the pledge to protect the Prophet with their very lives, was now due. Somber, thoughtful, who would step forward to pay the price? While many were lost in the tide of fear, Talha ibn Ubaidullah's eyes cut through the chaos. He saw the cluster of enemies swarming his beloved Prophet. In that instant, the battle, the fleeing army, and his own life became meaningless. With a warrior's roar, battle-cried, grunting, he charged headfirst into the enemy ranks. A lone protector against a sea of swords, determined to become a living shield for the messenger of God. The human shield. Talha crashed into the ring of assassins like a thunderbolt, one of a handful of companions who reached the Prophet in those desperate moments. What followed was a display of love so pure it would be etched into history forever. The wounded Prophet needed to be moved to the safety of a higher rock, but was too weak to climb. Talha, already injured, knelt and offered his own back as a step. As the Prophet used him to ascend, he looked at his selfless companion and declared, "Talha has made paradise obligatory for himself." But the enemy renewed their assault. An arrow flew directly at the Prophet's face. Without a flicker of hesitation, Talha thrust out his bare hand. The arrowhead tore through his flesh, severing nerves and tendons. The hand that had earned him fortunes was now paralyzed, a sacrifice made in a heartbeat. He let out a small gasp of pain, and the Prophet told him, "If you had said, 'In the name of God,' the angels would have lifted you up for all to see." Again and again, Talha threw his body in front of the Prophet, absorbing the blows meant for him. Swords slashed his skin, spears pierced his flesh. He sustained over 70 wounds, transforming his body into a map of his devotion. He fought with the fury of a man who knew he was defending the future of humanity, single-handedly holding back the enemy until help could arrive. After the battle, as the companions tended to the wounded and mourned their dead, they found Talha unconscious, lying in a pool of his own blood. The Prophet, his heart overflowing with love for this companion, made the declaration that would grant Talha his eternal title. Looking at his broken, bleeding form, he announced, with deep emotion, "Whoever would be pleased to look at a man walking on the earth who has already earned his place in paradise, let him look at Talha ibn Ubaidullah. He had not died, but he had fulfilled the pact of martyrdom. He had sold his life, and God, through the words of his prophet, had confirmed the transaction." From that day on, Talha was known by a name no other has held: Ash-Shahid al-Hayy, the Living Martyr. The generosity of a martyr. The legend sealed in blood at Uhud was the ultimate expression of a life defined by giving. Talha was already one of the 10 companions promised paradise in their lifetimes, Ashara Mubashara. His heroism that day was not what earned him this station. It was a demonstration of why he was worthy of it. He lived like a man of paradise on earth, and this certainty fueled a generosity that became a legend in itself. A famous account illustrates the heart of the living martyr. A massive payment of 700,000 silver coins arrived from his properties. That night, His wife found him pacing, his face etched with anxiety, concerned. "What troubles you?" she asked. "Have I done something to displease you?" "No," he replied, his voice heavy. Anxious. "But how can a man sleep, knowing he has this much wealth under his roof, uncertain of what his Lord thinks of him?" His wife, the daughter of the great Abu Bakr, understood. Calm. "Then let us distribute it," she said. By sunrise, every last coin had been given to the poor of Medina. The man who had used his body to shield the Prophet from harm could not rest while his wealth could be shielding his community from poverty. The life of Talha ibn Ubaidullah is a master class in devotion. It teaches us that love for the Prophet is not a passive feeling, but an active, all-consuming commitment. It redefines wealth, not as a tool for luxury, but as a trust from God to be used in His service. And it gives us the powerful concept of the living martyr, a station of supreme sacrifice that can be earned while one still walks the earth. Talha gave his body on the battlefield and his fortune in the city, proving that he had truly sold his life to God, and in return was granted the honor of living out his days as a man whose place in paradise was already secure.